Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Highlighting the Journey with DanDan, the podcast man. Today is a very interesting guest, believe it or not. He's actually the man that's actually behind this camera. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome James Calandrino.
Thanks, Dan. Not behind the camera today, but we make it work.
How does it feel now you're on this side? Well, you've done this before.
Yeah. I started my own podcast when I first opened the studio just to kind of bring more people in, make people aware of the space overall. I don't see it as like the thing that I'm meant to do in this life. However, I am much more of like a behind the camera type person.
Did you figure that out with by doing that? You're like, oh wait, I like being the quiet person on the control panel.
Yeah, I've always liked being more the not in front of the camera person, but it's one of those things with like my media business and this business. It's like, if I'm going to tell other people that they should be in front of the camera, I should also be able to get in front of the camera. So that way I can talk about it from a perspective of me, introvert, who does not like being in front of the camera, talking outwardly or expressing ideas or things like that. I'm more of like, no problem. Like just record, do what you got to do.
Do you feel that because you said you're an introvert, that coming out of doing this out of your comfort zone, do you like it, or do you see yourself like exploring new options because you have stepped out of that zone? Because I see a lot of people stay in that box.
For sure. I mean, when you're within that box, you're in your comfort zone all the time and, you're comfortable. And there's no friction. There's nothing that's like causing you to grow. So for me, I established my business back in like 2019. So it was right before the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and my primary business is where I shoot real estate. So for me, I'm constantly driving around, but I'm by myself. And especially during the pandemic, I'm barely even meeting an agent on site. So I'm just by myself 90% of the time. And then like I also had twin toddlers in the middle of the pandemic. So it was like, then I go home and then I feel like I'm by myself even more so, because now I have twins that can't communicate, that can't do anything, that like you're having to do everything for. And, it was just one of those like lonely periods of business, and
it's so funny that you mentioned like how lonely all that stuff is. I really didn't think about that until you just mentioned all that right now. It's developing a business by yourself. And obviously you started your business during COVID, which wasn't probably the most, let me go out there and network and find people, know. But I wanted, before we start diving more into your story, which I think is gonna be awesome, because I use this place. I think what you have created here in Long Island, Bohemia, your studio is literally like, I think it has to be utilized more. I think people are not realizing the value behind it. Even yet, like a few days ago during Memorial Day weekend, I was sitting down with my father and explaining the podcast, and then, we got to talk about numbers. And I explained to him, oh yeah, it costs this amount of money and this amount of money. The eyes goes like this. I'm like, I look at him, I'm like, there's no ROI, but you have no idea how many people have contacted me ever since I started a podcast. Yeah, I'm not probably getting thousands of views on YouTube, which we have discussed this. I'm not, I got to get these amount of views. This is more of fun and something I always wanted to do. So I kind of want to like talk about your studio and what you creating it and what started it and everything.
So one of the best parts about the studio overall that I really enjoy, one is the networking. And that's one of the biggest parts, is that like you may not see an ROI in terms of like dollars in your pocket today, but you're growing your network. Like just how you have people hitting you up on a daily basis. Hey, I want to come on the podcast. I have something to say, but I don't know what to do or where to say it. And like, I need someone to kind of like tee me up. And that's where somebody like you comes in and you bring on all the people in your network, and that gives them that platform. And now that makes you the go-to person for them. If they need something, now they're thinking of Dan, because Dan hooked them up and had them on a podcast for an hour and a half, And so now it's the network that you're getting. It's also the network that you don't currently have, but you want to get into. And that's a big one, where like if there's somebody in your space for your business, whether you're a doctor, surgeon, fitness professional, nutritionist, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Where you see that person, they're big. they're posting all the time. They have a big ass following. And you're like, how do I tap into that? You ask them to come on your podcast.
Yeah.
And now you're having a face-to-face conversation. They get to know you. You become their go-to person when they're in town of, hey, I know this guy. He's good people. I want to get on his podcast. I want to talk to him. Or if he has a referral that he needs that they can't do, they know somebody that they can trust that's going to do that job that they've met face-to-face, had conversations with. And that's where now that they develop that trust and you also get access to their audience.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the biggest thing for you as like the podcast host is now getting access to a totally different audience. And now you're growing not only your personal following and your personal network, but now you're growing potential client network.
And I think you couldn't be more right about that. When I tag somebody in a collaboration, how powerful that is, because I'm directly linking up to their Instagram, to their Facebook, whatever it is. Now we have a connection.
Yep.
So I have bridged my network to their network. Both networks are seeing each other like, oh, there's Dan. Oh, there's James. Oh, wait a minute. Dan's in real estate. James is a photographer and has a podcast studio. Like, I'm so curious. James knows Dan. Can you hook me up with Dan?
Right.
And now you establish these connections without even realizing how powerful it is. So I want to talk about your setup here because you know me. I immediately walk through this door and I'm like, this is it. This is the studio, what I've dreamed of. This is what I envisioned. Of course, how you decorated too was also key. I think you have put on a wonderful display, and I kind of want to pick certain points about why you chose it this way, and virtually made it the easiest thing possible. I just walk in, I change my clothes, but then I sit down and bam, I'm just like,
That was kind of the idea where anybody could do a podcast. Anybody could buy the equipment. You could buy the cameras. You could buy the microphones. You could buy all the lighting. You could try to spend the time figuring out how to edit it. Or you could just come to a space that's already made for this. You don't have to worry about how does microphones work? How many microphones? Does this microphone hear what that person is saying? Does this light actually make me look good or does it add 5 pounds? You know, like all these different technical things that people they just don't have time for. You wanted to do a podcast because you were interested in something, not get into all the nitty gritty of cameras and lighting and audio control and editing and how all these different things work. So the main criteria for the business was just to make it where somebody sits down, they talk in front of a microphone, we hit record and get everything back to them in a timely manner.
of course. And you're mentioning all the technical stuff. When I started shooting content before I came to the studio, I was sitting with the Sony camera, making sure my softbox, these lights were at 4300. I'm trying to figure out what's the right focus. Do I have enough depth behind me? It was all these things. And you just made it virtually like the simplest thing. And I want people to recognize that too. I just want to make it like people aware of like how, I don't want to say it's so effortlessly because obviously you have done your homework. You have spent your time as a photographer. You know how to stage this correctly. And it makes it so much fun too and stress-free for me. That's one thing I don't have to worry about. What I worry about is like, okay, what outfit am I going to ultimately wear? Because I don't want to be wearing the same outfit. But that's like the biggest concern for my podcast now is like, okay, I don't want to be wearing the same shoes, the same pants, this, that. But like, and then you is just like, here you go. You're all set.
Yeah, and I mean, between this set and the other set that we have, where it's two different vibes, it's different conversations that can occur at each one. You know, like this one I like is more of a laid back, it's a relaxed feel, like, and then the other one it's more of a table, so it's you're leaning forward into the conversation. Two people that are, you know, a foot apart, engaged with each other. And that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed doing my podcast is talking to someone eye to eye for an hour with no distractions, no phones, no emails, no clients that are pissed off about this, that, and the other thing. No like homeowner that's calling you about something that's like trivial. It's like you have that hour to just sit and have a conversation with one person with intention. And that's kind of the biggest thing where like I can't even talk to my wife for 35 seconds without both of my kids running in and having something to say. And I can't even like recap my day with her. But I can come in here and have a conversation on camera, disconnect, go on Do Not Disturb. And that's a really great hour of my day. And I know the more that I've done it, the more confident I get talking to the next person because it's the reps. You're getting the practice in. And that's what I was saying before, where like you're looking at Joe Rogan now after 2,500 episodes.
Yeah.
You don't see all the work that he did in 2008 to 2015, where nobody was paying attention to his podcast and he was just doing it and figuring it out along the way. What works, what doesn't work, what do you like, what do you want to see more of, what do you want to see less of, how do I get more out of this person, how do I tell that person to shut up without telling them? So there's a lot of different art of the conversation that you don't get on a daily basis. You don't get when you're talking to an employee or your boss. You don't get where you're talking to a business partner, even to an extent, unless you say, I'm going to be intentional about this hour. I'm going to work on my business. I'm going to talk about my business. I'm going to be passionate and present for my business. And that's exactly where the podcast studio kind of comes in, whether you're creating content for your business and doing a bunch of different short form ads, or having brilliant conversations where now you get to grow your network, grow your knowledge base, and have that go-to person that when you know I have a mold problem in one of my homes, I got a mold guy because I just interviewed him 2 months ago on my podcast.
Yeah.
And now you know, boom, now I'm going to give that guy business. He's going to refer me next time that he's got a flip that needs to come around and knows people that are looking for rental properties. And now one hand washes the other. And it's all because of the connection that you get from doing a podcast.
So many great things you just rattled off. I want to pick a few things and highlight a few things that you have mentioned. The number one, before you even got on here, I go to my phone and I put on Don't Disturb, and it's off. We have to shut it off because we don't want any interruptions. And I was telling you, like, there's like the hour or 3 hours that I spend here that I feel like I'm on vacation. Like I don't hear anything. I'm like, and then the second I turn my phone on, I'm like, ooh. So yes, you get this complete disconnect from the phone, the messaging services. The other thing I also want to mention, I never ever liked watching a podcast that was two screens. I just watch a screen to watch two more screens that watches another 3 screens. I'm like, oh my God, where's the in-person? Everything that you mentioned too. Now, we're in a room, just you and me. I believe the human experience, ultimately, everybody wants to feel connected in some way, shape, or fashion. And having the podcast is really, like you said, you hone in on a genuine, real conversation. There is nothing else coming at you going bing, bing, oh, this, the kid's there, oh, the stove is on, whatever it might be. And it's quite amazing. And I'm going to say one last thing about everything. When people do this podcast, and I've noticed it because I've experienced it when I'm done with doing somebody else's podcast, I see a giant smile on their face. They're like, wow, that was great, man. And I feel like, yeah, it's cool. The lights are here, the cameras are here, and it may be a little intimidating, but ultimately it's like, wow, that was really cool. But I think it's a little bit deeper than that, James. I think it's more of, you feel good because you had that real connection with somebody and there was nothing interrupting it. So you experience what I just said, the human experience, which is connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, there's no screen intermediary. You're not doing it through Zoom, and it's not like a work meeting to an extent, where I see some podcasts that are almost work meetings. And it's like, all right, this is not really super interesting, or when you have two people face to face, you could pick up on all the micro expressions. And when you say something and it resonates with another person, you're like, okay, I hit the right note. Now I know like to keep going along that route. And that's where being a podcast host is more than just like, hey, come on my podcast. You're kind of teeing people up in order for them to shine. Yeah. And then you get to say, okay, cool. I see that this really matters to you. This makes you super passionate. I'm going to hit on that point a little bit more. So now you're just giving them, people love to talk about themselves.
Get out of here.
Ultimately.
Since when?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things like, some people just won't shut up about themselves, and other people you have to coax it out of them.
Yeah.
And that's the art of being a host. Is not everybody's going to be like, yep, nope, that's cool. I drive this way and I deliver concrete and that's all that we do. And some people you have to coax a little bit more. You have to get them to smile and see the joy that comes from a conversation.
You're ultimately so many check boxes you just mentioned, just like bam, feeling good, bam, you're highlighting the person. What does this person do? Bam, yeah, they're talking about themselves. Bam, there's another check. That's why I've always, not recently, but I was just such a huge Howard Stern fan because I would listen to these interviews by him and I'm like, how the hell did he fish that information out of this person? And he's such an excellent person to grab this information that you will never hear, because that's the other thing too, the art of the podcast. The art of the podcast too is unfiltered.
Mm-hmm.
There's no commercial breaks. Oh, there might be like a quick commercial break
Yeah.
in some of them, but more or less, there's nothing me editing and changing what we're having right now. So you generally see the person as they are through a whole interview. And I think ultimately, that's where the media is going towards. That's where everybody's on their phones. People don't want to, I don't believe it. I know some of you're going to hate saying this term, but maybe the boomers like my father, but it's just the regular media where it's like, oh, here's the news and then commercial break. And then you just, but then you watch, wow, that person's really about that. And there's nothing blocking them. And there's no advertisement. There's no agenda behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
that's
raw.
kind of the biggest thing. It's not, I have this person coming on my show because they have a new book coming out. It's, I have this person on my show because I'm genuinely interested to hear about them, or I want to promote them and tell my network about this person because I think they're great and I think everybody should hear about them. And that's the other part of it is it's not just how can I get bigger as a podcaster? It's who can I put on that will see the value in what we're creating and the media that you're going to get out of it, because not everybody sees that. I've had clients come in here and be like, okay, all right, what is Facebook? And then it's like, okay, so we're going to start at that point. So it's like, I have to explain all of social media to you. And then I also have to explain the importance of now creating the content to go on this fictional media thing. So it's like, I had to sell that person right from the jump because their brain didn't see the value in it because they're operating on a different wavelength and involved in a different field than the technology field or media field overall. So for me, it's kind of like, how do I bring that person into the studio and show them the value that can come? And like for that guy, he was an engine builder. So it's like, here's how you can sell more engines by doing a podcast and talking to other engine builders, to other manufacturers, to different people in the field, to racers that have used your engines, and that's how you channel that audience. And then now you're putting that racer out there. That racer might have just gotten booked for another race in a totally different place that they wouldn't have thought of.
100%.
And now you get to sell a new engine because somebody saw that person race at that new place that he never would have gone on to. So it's like one hand washes the other, and it's never a direct A to B ROI. It's A to C to F to G,
I think it just overspills.
Right.
You're literally just like, it's just like I'm making up an analogy as I'm doing this. It's like an ice cream cone. You get the ice cream, great, fantastic. That's the person. And now you're getting the overlayer of the toppings, the sprinkles. The sprinkles are everywhere. The whatever, chocolate syrup.
Mm-hmm.
And then right on top, that right person, the cherry on top. You get the cherry on top because they see your value. The other thing too, one thing about me, because I'm an extrovert. I'm very loud. I always love having the attention on me. I grew up that way. I know who I am ultimately. But when I started in real estate, and not even just real estate, literally everything, I was screaming in the back of my head, I wish this person would just see how good I am.
Mm-hmm.
I wish this person can see how smart I am. I wish this person can, whoever it is, it just, how am I going to get their attention? And that's like kind of like indirectly, not just go up to them and just start saying, well, I'm all these things, check me out. But somebody's scrolling through and they scroll to this video right now and they go, whoa, this guy Dan, he seems nice. It seems like he knows he's talking about with real estate. Maybe I should contact him. And it literally, it sets a wonderful stage up for honing in on that person. And I really think this is very undervalued. I really think this tool. The other thing too is like, what do you know the cost? What was the cost that I know there's a number out there that the podcast industry made last year? Wasn't it like $7 billion?
Yeah, it was in mid billions, because it's conversations, but the people that are going to see the most from these conversations are business owners. And that's why I didn't start the podcast studio I'll never turn anybody away. Let's say that. Wow. But I didn't gear it towards like the sport fans or like two guys that want to talk about the Knicks and the Rangers. I didn't gear the space towards them. I geared it towards business owners who don't have a lot of time, who don't have a lot of experience, and have zero interest in making their own videos, that need to do that because it's 2025. You need to also be making video content for your business. And one of the things that you touched on is, being the face and people getting to know you. It's that warm introduction.
Yeah.
That somebody gets to know you before they know you. And that's where, like, to an extent, half the people whose podcasts I listen to, if I were to talk to them on a phone, I'd be like, here, take my money. Like, I feel like I know you already. I trust you implicitly. I've listened to you talk every week for an hour for the last 3 years. I trust you implicitly. Take my money, do with my house what you will, and that's the trust that you're getting from someone, because very much like Joe Rogan does 3-hour-long episodes, it's hard to lie when you're talking to somebody face to face, eye to eye for 3 hours. Yep. Even the best actors are still going to break down at some point and be like, all right, listen, I can't keep this charade up. It's very difficult unless you're like Andy Kaufman type level of like commitment to the bit, but very ultimately rare. People will come on, and when they have an unfiltered conversation, they feel comfortable with the person that they're talking to, their true selves will come out. And then the more that your true self comes out, the more that the audience is going to see who you are, how you talk, how you communicate, the knowledge that you have, how passionate you are about your given area, your business. And they'll say, I like that person because I feel like I trust them. Just by watching that video, but just by watching that first clip that attracted me, now I'm going to go to their Instagram page and I'm going to research them, and I'm going to look up their LinkedIn, and I'm going to look up their Facebook and see who this person is. Oh, now I see their website. Oh, wow, their website's even more beautiful than how they spoke. And that's how you're going to get new business that trusts you before they even call you. Because that's the easiest business that you can get, is somebody that already knows they want to do business with you.
Yes.
And you don't have to convince them. You don't have to sell them. It's just, I know I need this thing. I trust you implicitly. You are the best person for this thing. And so I'm calling you. And you're like, great, that's awesome. Let's get it on the schedule for next Tuesday.
What I tell people all the time, I don't invest I don't want to say like a product or this house. I ultimately invest in people. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel. I'm investing in that person, you. I invest in you, James, because I feel like what you do here, I trust you with putting this stuff out there, recording it, and all that stuff. What's funny is like you're mentioning people already know you. And I'm having those experiences from time to time, even before the podcast, when I was just shooting just regular content. And people are like, oh, you're Dan the home buyer, man. I'm like, yeah. And recently at work too, this guy, I met him in the Bronx, buried. You will never find this job site. It was just a small micro job site. And this guy was a wholesaler. He's like, you're Dan the home buyer, man. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I am that guy. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny, and it is very weird. There's another person I want to talk about. I don't know if you know him. You ever hear of a guy named Michael Chernow?
The name sounds familiar, yes.
So he is an incredible person. he over 20 years sober. He made the meatball shop in New York, and he took off with all these restaurants and businesses, and he just really knows how to build a restaurant. So then he went on the Rich Roll podcast, and he really just unveiled his whole entire life story, which for me was just like this immediate connection because I am sober, and I'm just like, who is this guy? I had no idea. And at the time, my other sober friend recommended it. I was like, Dan, check out this podcast. And it was 3 hours of just listening to comfort. I was just like, oh my God, this guy, he just went through the same exact pain. He went through all this stuff, and it was quite remarkable. He actually hosted an event in New York last year. He does what's called the Ruck Walk in Central Park, where they wear a vest to kind of show that recovery is a thing. It was so funny. You want to hear how crazy I am? Because I couldn't wait to meet him. I thought wearing a 20-pound vest that we were going to go run through Central Park, but that was not the case. It was just a regular walk. So for like 3 weeks, I was running in Italy up mountains, just getting my endurance up. And then when I got back to New York, I put on the vest, and I said, because it was in September, the event is late September or October. It was probably the first week of October. And I'm like, I can't wait. And then when I was like all pumped and ready, I get to his meatball shop in New York where he's hosting the event, and I'm like, are we running? Everybody looks at me, he's like, no, we're not running that long. What are you, crazy? I'm just like, oh my God. But I know I kind of went off on a little tangent story, but I met Michael, and I got that feeling where I know everything about him, but he has no idea who the hell I am. He has no idea what he's done for me indirectly.
Right.
He has given me emotional support. And I feel like podcasts, when you find certain people, like for him, he's that guy where I'm like, yeah, whatever he's doing, sign me up. But not just him. It could be so many other influencers where you watch their lifestyle, you're like, sign me up with that person because I like what that person's saying.
And that's one of the things that, like, I never really listened to Alex Hormozi. I didn't even really know who he was. I'm in like one group where somebody was like, oh, Alex Hormozi says this. And it's like, I've seen the clips to an extent. I've like seen him, but
you can't miss him.
But I never watched him.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where like I just saw this dude with like a thing on his nose in every video and like looking like a hobo, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I don't trust anything that this guy says. And then I would just like immediately scroll without even listening to the message that was in the video.
Yeah.
And then it was one of those things where like this other person that I trusted put me onto him. I was like, all right, fine, I'll listen to it. And then I was like, oh wow, like this guy is actually not just incredibly knowledgeable, but the way that he dumbs it down for a 5th grade educational level. And the fact that he's like, I dumbed it down to a 5th grade education level because I'm a 5th grade education level. And I'm like, okay, I like this guy, like just enough self-deprecating, but like also super successful and can see things that happen in multiple businesses all the time. And it's just like patterns. And he's recognized the patterns better than most other people. And one of the things that I love that he says, where he's like, you have to give and give and give and give and give. Information, knowledge, value, constantly giving, because then when you finally ask for someone to buy something from you, they're like, yeah, absolutely. You've given me so much that I have zero qualms with buying from you because this is the first time you've asked. You didn't ask last week. You didn't ask this week and next week. And, you know, nobody's constantly asking. And the less that you ask, the more that you give, the more that will come back to you because you're not constantly inundating people with like, hey, give me money. Hey, give me money. Hire my service.
Yeah, you're behind what he says and you trust him. That's how I feel about Michael Chernow. He makes this incredible oatmeal that it's like 300 calories. It has every type of like pumpkin seeds. I'm about to like announce his whole product, but it's called the Creatures of Habits oatmeal. And when he explained it, and he didn't have to like directly buy my oatmeal, he just explained like, I made this oatmeal. I felt like I eat oatmeal all the time. That's how he started in sobriety. He would eat oatmeal first thing in the morning because some guy told him to. And then he ultimately made this incredible breakfast that made it so simple, so easy. So when he announced it, it was like a no-brainer. I wasn't like, but everything he just kind of just said it like, yeah, sign me up for what you got going on. And I think that's where people want to see that. There is no more, I feel like there's no more like, oh man, I'm behind Nike because of their shoes because of just the way it looks. No, a lot of people now, they want to know who's running the company.
Mm-hmm.
People want to know people don't say, like, people say Apple, but really people say Tim Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're saying who owns it. I don't hear people talking about Amazon. Everybody's talking about Jeff Bezos. They're just who is running this organization, who's running the product. And yeah, I like his attitude. How do I get behind him?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that we've seen, especially in the last couple of years on social media, is the rise of influencers, where I like influencers personally that don't outwardly try to sell you, that they're not making like a blatant ad. It's, I use DeWalt tools to build my sheds or whatever, but they're not saying it. They just have DeWalt everything in their video. And it's like, oh, I like that tool that guy's got. I'm going to go look that up on Home Depot's website. Not because he said to, but because that's what he uses. I fancy myself being somewhere in the same vein as this video that I'm watching of this creator. So I want to use the tools that they're using. And those, I find, are the best ones. My wife, personally, she hates those ones. She hates the ones that are like incognito selling you. She likes the ones that are like, I love using Dove soap because X, Y, and Z. Like, and those, everybody watches different. They learn different. They trust different. So if you're not creating content, then how are you even reaching that audience, let alone educating them and finding out who likes this and who doesn't like that, and doing A/B tests on Facebook ads and things like that?
I really got to ask this question because I feel like you have a really good answer on this because you do all this. How much a month do you pay for Instagram?
I currently pay the like Meta Verified at like $15 a month. And then I usually do anywhere from like $15 to $50 a week in paid ads.
And what do you...
But I don't do the boost. Don't do the boosts. When you do boosts on Instagram, it's like a fake boost.
I've noticed some of that.
It's awful.
But he answered my question wrong.
Uh-oh.
What I was trying to get at was, and listen, you answered the way you did, but what I originally wanted you to answer, I was like, well, how much does Instagram, if you were to download Instagram right now, what does it cost you?
Oh, it's free.
Okay, great. Yeah. What does Facebook cost?
Free.
YouTube?
Low barrier to entry, free.
Free. And it's already there. Everybody, and I think there's going to be a certain point also, I believe, because I want to talk about the future too, where I could see these social media ads or something being paid. I can definitely see it possibly changing routes. I know Gary Vee has really been strongholding that because he just screams at the top of his lung of, you better be shooting any content. Just point the camera and start recording. And that's what I've been doing. Just point the camera and just say something. Just say something, because you're gonna wish that you're able to get on a platform completely free. And yes, nowadays you go through Instagram, you go through Facebook, and I've noticed it, and especially TikTok, and because I used to really love TikTok, but every time I swipe in TikTok, there's an ad. There's like, oh yeah, I got the new salt. Oh, I'm taking the blue gel, and then it's like, now I'm taking Shilajit. I'm like, oh my God. But I want to talk about the future with all this. How do you feel like, where obviously you established the studio, which I also want to talk about as well, but where do you see everything going social media wise and this content?
Ultimately, people will buy from people that they trust. And it kind of goes right back to what we were talking about before, where the more content that you create, it's one of those things where like looking stupid is the cost of entry.
You have to. That's the one thing. Everybody, I forgot who said it. You're so scared.
I think it was Alex Hormozy, but he was like, looking stupid is the price of entry into entrepreneurship and into content creation. If you want a business that can be successful on its own, you, as the business owner, need to get in front of it. You need to be the face. When people see you show up for an estimate, they want to see you.
Of course.
And, certain businesses will see that once they start scaling past a certain point and the owner isn't the one showing up, that people will be like, oh, I was expecting Joe, and it's like, oh, okay. Like, I'm still going to be happy. Like, I think you did a great job with the service, but like in their head, they were expecting the owner. And when the owner is trying to take more of a working on the business than in the business approach, that's where some people can get into that mushy middle of like a scaling opportunity, is that like they don't know either when to stop doing that, or they're still doing it but not enough or too much, and it's one of those things where it's like that's one of the difficulties of scaling, is that people expect to see you.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And
so
then
many
when you
times
don't
they,
show up,
it's
or
like,
you're sending another person,
who are you? You're not the guy from the podcast.
Exactly. But it's very similar where you even see it with like Dave Ramsey. He'll take people's phone calls on the air.
I love it.
But he's not doing any work off the air in terms of like dealing with people.
Yeah, no.
He's not taking a phone call after he's off the air and helping somebody in their financial situation. He's got 1,000 team members that they are more qualified to handle the nitty gritty of that person and devote their entire thought process to that client. And that's one of the things where I see trouble with scaling, and trying to get yourself away from the client base at large, like not saying that you don't want to talk to your clients, but it's more of like, I want someone else to be that salesperson. I want someone else to be that estimator, so creating the content gets you that trust of your company. You're telling people how great your team is. I have the best team. I've hired the best people. I've trained every single person myself, and they know even more than I do because they dedicated all their time and effort to this, and I have to run a business.
So would you think that a good solution, not entirely the whole solution, but I think it will solve a good chunk, a decent part of the scaling, is having those people on the podcast?
Yeah.
Who are you working with?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm working with this person.
Right.
Oh, so if that person does show up, oh, I know, I remember him. Like you hear, like, even let's reference Joe Rogan. Like he always mentions Jamie. Like, it's just like
Jamie's a team member.
he's a team member of that. Yeah.
And like if somebody was to just go out and meet Jamie, he'd be like, oh shit, Jamie.
Yeah.
Like, and he's not as famous, but almost just as famous.
Of course.
And like he's hardly ever on screen. You never even see him. I wouldn't even know what he looks like.
I have to Google him.
But it's more the point that like as soon as you see somebody be like, oh, that's Jamie from Joe Rogan, you'd be like, oh shit, I fucking know that guy. Yeah. I've listened to him interject into 3-hour podcasts for the last like 5 years. So it's like, but it's a trust thing. And the more you want people to trust your team, the more you talk about your team and how much they know and how knowledgeable they are. And same thing, give and give and give. Have that person be the one that's giving. Have that person be the one on site that's saying, hey, this is Joe and we're at such and such house in Levittown and we're doing X, Y, and Z service. And that's why roofing company A is the best, And it's like now when people see him show up, they automatically say, oh, I've seen your videos. I've seen you on Roofing Company A's website. And I see you all over the place. And I think that's great. And that's awesome. And now this business owner can take that step back. But in the beginning, it sucks to an extent. It sucks. But you have to be a content creator. You have 100%. To be out there. And that's why, as much as I love being behind the camera over here,
he knows how to get him on.
I know that I also need to be in front of the camera because people need to hear me. And this is also an opportunity to now, instead of talking to one person, as much as we're talking one-on-one, we're talking to the audience at large. And we're trying to educate people at large. And maybe somebody new calls based on that clip that they saw, that conversation. They're like, I really like that. What your take was on that. And I think, I'd really like to do business with you moving forward. And even if you just try it out on like a short-term thing and then you do it, you knock it out of the park and boom, now you have a long-term client because they saw you on Instagram for 35 seconds.
Yeah. Everybody's looking at their phones if you haven't noticed. And has anybody you're looking at your phone right now watching me. No. I want to get into what you provide here, James, because I think you provide a tremendous amount of value that is not being seen right now. I'm being quite honest. And that's why I wanted to interview you and talk to you because we have developed an incredible relationship where I put It's so wonderful how you have set this up where you, like I said, make it effortlessly. Yes, the cameras, all that, but it's also the relationship I have with you. You're my guy. You're my podcast guy. And as far as I know, you're not going anywhere unless you fire me. That was probably the only way that would happen. But I see such a great line of communication, effort to put things together for me, scheduling wise, accommodating a lot of things, making things work where realistically, yeah, not everybody's going to have this cut and dry. Oh yeah, I'm going to see you every Monday at 3:00, but you make it work ultimately. But I want I want you to explain what you provide here, not just this two-seater, just a little bit about everything about. We didn't even say the name of your studio. What is the name of this place?
It is LI Creator Studios. And basically, I have two different sets within the one space where this one's more of a living room set. We have another long white couch, so you could do up to 4 people.
This is my stuff, by the way. You don't have to do your podcast with this here. You can put whatever you want.
I have a number of generic books that we could put on the bookshelf, or like Dan is doing, you use it as an opportunity to make your podcast a little bit more personable to you and different from everybody else. I mean, ultimately, I made these spaces where you could record in front of this background every single time, and it looks consistent for you.
Yep.
Somebody else could record in front of this same background, but we make it look different. So now every podcast that records is different. Some people might like the white couch more, or they want to do one gray couch, one white couch, because you have 2 people coming in. Now you're interviewing 2 people at the same time. And so the space can expand and be customized to each person. We could also take the table from the other set, bring it over here. Now we have a table set.
What kind of table is that? You got
It's like a dining room office table, and that one's just meant for conversations. Exactly what a dining room table is a conversation piece where 2 people can look across the table from each other, and that's why I say it's more of a lean in kind of conversation. People elbows on the table, you're engaged in that conversation, and sometimes for certain topics, that's exactly what you need. You need another person that's just as engaged as you are. And then for other things where it's a little bit more educational, you could do that. But we have it where you can create content for your business or your YouTube channel, or do a whole bunch of videos in a day, or you could do long form conversations. You can do long form YouTube channels. So if somebody wants to do unboxing videos, we have everything that you need to do that. We have all the lighting, the cameras.
We can unbox stuff?
We could do unboxing.
Oh my God.
If you want to bring things
into that.
We could do like a top down unboxing video.
Hell yeah.
But the idea is that the space, I design them to be as generic as possible, but also nice as possible. Where I've been in enough Hamptons houses to know like what generally goes well together. Like these couches, I modeled exactly after Hamptons couches.
Really? That's how you got the idea?
I see these same couches in half of the Hamptons houses that I go to photograph.
These chairs?
It's basically this exact chair, except this one was like $400 cheaper.
But come on, we got.
I mean, I was balling on a budget, but the idea is that I didn't want to half-ass this. I was going to whole-ass it,
not at all.
And really take this. If I was going to do something, I wanted to do it to the best of my ability to make it a good space where instead of it's just like I'm doing this in my garage and like I have people come over and do a podcast and then like I slowly grow into it. It was one of those where it's just like, if you're going to do it right, do multiple sets, do everything that we needed to happen where somebody just comes in, they sit down, we press record, you get the clips, you get the long form, you get the value that you're looking for and the connection with other people. And most of all, it's really just watching people, like you were saying before, like when you leave here, you're happy.
Oh yeah.
Because it didn't feel as heavy as your brain was telling you that it was going to be ahead of it. How many people have you had come on your podcast that are like, I don't like being on camera. This is not comfortable for me. And then 5 minutes in, they're just riffing, they're talking, they're laughing, they're having a good time. They're going over stories. And it's because after a couple of minutes, you don't even recognize that the cameras are here. You're just having a conversation. The cameras are a byproduct. And it's really just that value that you get after the fact. And it's the reps that you get in. The more you do it, the more you see like, oh, I like that. Oh, I didn't like this. But maybe next time I could do this. Oh, this is good for the next time. Oh, and that's why one of the things that I pushed so hard and it worked with you was the free studio tour. Come in, check it out.
Yep.
No questions. Just like, come on in.
Get a free video.
And that was a unique thing. But No, I would do that for the next person.
No,
Just
of
because
course, I know you would.
It works.
It absolutely worked.
It got you hooked. You got to see the product
and felt it.
and felt it right then and there. And I was able to, like, that day, had a little bit of time, edit it right in front of you. And I was like, this is a down and dirty edit, but you got to see the quality in seconds.
The way you did it, it was so like, I just looked at you, I'm like, can I shoot something right now? I want to promote something. And you're like, yeah, sit down. I'm like, really? We don't, like, yeah, sit down. And it's exactly what you're seeing in front of you right now. This is exactly what I shot my first video. And obviously you did it, you know, just to get me hooked, and you hooked me. And not to pick your business apart, but like, what does it ultimately cost? What did that cost you?
Nothing.
Nothing. And what did you gain?
Yeah.
And you've been saying nothing but give, give, give. You just gave me something that I just looked at. I'm like, wow, I love this.
Yeah.
What's really funny about what's happening right now, so no one's behind the control panel. I'm used to seeing James over there. We're just actually looking at a monitor, and it's very different. It's so funny. But otherwise, you wouldn't know. You're right. I forget that all this is set up. I forget that completely out the door. Like, so what types of podcasts would you love? I know you mentioned to some people like a coffee show. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, you could do like a coffee show where you had like a certain topic that you wanted to do it around. You know, you could do, I've always said from the beginning, you know, people that want to talk about whiskey, you know, and go over all the different nuances. And this one tastes like this, and that one tastes like this, and that one won awards. And wine, same thing, you know. That's one area. But I think the biggest benefit is to business owners that don't have time to make content.
I do not have
They
any
don't have
time.
the wherewithal. They have ideas, but they don't know what to do with the ideas or the time that it takes to prepare for an idea. They don't have someone that they could just bounce that idea off of. And they're like, I'm great at somebody throwing an idea at me that's like a vague like concept.
Oh yeah, you are.
And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. So we could take that and then do X, Y, Z, blah, blah. And then now we have this idea. It's like, oh, that's much better. And it's like, we also have the teleprompter. So somebody could just read right off of the teleprompter. So that way you don't have to study it. You don't have to go line by line. Like, okay, I look at this line. Oh, all right. And then now you're like back to it. So it's like, how many people try that when you're on site? And it's just like, I'm going to memorize a line and then say it to the camera. And then you go to say it to the camera and you're like, what the fuck was that line? And then you're like constantly back and forth. But at least with the teleprompter, now you can either do bullet points. Like, I need to hit these 3 bullet points in this conversation.
So how the teleprompter works, is I've done it with him. It is so freaking cool. It literally goes, he puts a screen right in front of the camera. You won't even see the camera. And it's reading the words right in front of you. And you don't even realize if you're camera shy, because there was this whole element of staring directly in the camera. Like, am I talking? Who am I talking? I'm talking to this thing. But putting that in front of it also built a barrier, built a shield for the uncomfortable parts of it. Now, I don't care. How much videos have I shot? I don't even know at this point. But I'm more comfortable behind the camera. But for people, I don't think you anymore, but maybe the introverts would like, oh my God, I don't want to shoot content. I literally message people like, shoot content. I see they post online too, like, here's how to design a bedroom, and they write like the bullet points. I'm like, there's your content right there. People, I'm not saying it's a bad method. I'm not discrediting what you did, but I think it'll be more like, if you're talking about it, like, these are the things you can do in the bathroom. Well, you can, you know, put soft lighting. You make these colors are really good colors. And then you're reading off. People don't even realize how much content they actually are just sitting on. And like, oh, I don't know what to talk about my business. And not just real estate, anything. And they're just like, you literally can read off like what you do. And people will be like, sign me up.
Most people don't realize how much of a wealth of knowledge
they actually are.
They actually are.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a lot of people, they're in certain industries where they're like, oh, nobody's interested in hearing about this. And it's like, actually, for me, example, I am not interested in car detailing. I will barely wash my car and vacuum it out like once a month.
The Prius?
Yeah, no, the Prius wagon. But I've also found myself on YouTube for 8 minutes. 8 solid minutes.
They got James
watching a guy detail a car.
8 minutes. He finally watched it.
Start to finish. I'm not interested. This is not something I'm trying to learn. I don't have any of the tools. I don't have the steamers that this guy's got, but I'm interested because it was interesting. And it's not something that like I search out, but when the algorithm puts it in front of me, I'll be like, all right, oops. That car was atrocious and now it's not, you know? And it's like, so people will dedicate time to things that they find interesting, even if it's not like their core interest. You know, like that guy on YouTube, SB Mowing. Same thing. I'm not really interested in watching people mow, but I'm interested in the transformations and watching this guy walk up to someone's house for free and say, I will do this, catching that interaction. And then if he's got any like cops that come around or neighbors that threaten him or something like that, that adds a little bit more to it. But it's more of just like, I will sit there and watch, again, an 8 to 10 minute long video of somebody just mowing and cutting down branches and making a house look like it was the homeless house on the block to now it's actually a home, you know, that somebody could see themselves in. So those types of transformation pieces that somebody might be saying like, oh, what I do isn't interesting. Nobody's interested in it. Maybe nobody's interested in your local market. Maybe there's somebody interested across the country that is either doing something similar, wants to learn how to do something similar, or a homeowner that's like, how the fuck do I do this?
Yeah.
How do I get rid of the pests around my house? You know, pest control isn't exactly a sexy video.
It's not.
But
I think it is.
But how many people are Googling how to get rid of X insect?
Of course.
And if you're that professional and you own that exterminating business, now you're expanding your client base to everyone in the country. Yeah. Because now you're putting out that content. You accept it. I'm gonna look to a certain segment of people. But you know, like my brother might text me and be like, "Oh, you look like an idiot." But most people are gonna see that and say, "Oh, wow, this person knows what he's talking about. I like him. Oh, he actually sells products too. I'll buy his products. They're organic. They don't have the same things that you get at Home Depot. You know, I'll spend a little bit more on his product because I like his videos. I like what he has to say. I trust him. And that could be somebody in Oregon buying your products from New York." So it opens a lot of doors to 1, conversation, 2, networking, 3, that opportunity for new sales and people just knowing you before they even know you.
100%.
And you're not convincing them as to why this is valuable. They already know why it's valuable to them and they're just ready to say, all right, take my money.
I love it. I love it. A few things and then we'll wrap it up. So you mentioned, James, across the country. That's where your video goes, by the way. You have no idea where this can end up in Hawaii. This thing can end up in
Turkey. It could be anywhere in the world.
It's just so crazy. It can literally go anywhere.
And there's lots of people like Mr. Beast, for instance. Every video he makes, he has a squad of editors translating it into every language imaginable around the globe. And that's how he gets as many views as he does, is because it's accessible to all these people,
of course,
across the globe.
2 things. AI is definitely taking off where the translation's coming. And there's this guy online that doesn't say a word online, but his interactions with certain objects speaks the language of everybody. And he was able to grab an audience immediately because it virtually went everywhere. But I see where I was playing around with some editing software where it's going to translate for you. What we're talking about can be translated into Spanish and anything like that. Man, oh man. So some great highlighting points. What James said, you got to look dumb. You got to look stupid. That's the price. Are you willing to pay that price? Ultimately, I say yes. Look dumb. Get on here. Talk on here. Figure it out. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't think so much into it because at the end of the day, ultimately, at least like how I feel about all this, at least I know I tried. Mm-hmm. I noticed I gave it all. And like you said, I'm not half-assing this studio, which you didn't, and that's how I felt about the podcast. And when I walk in here, I don't feel like I'm half-assing nothing. Everybody looks at my podcast like, holy crap. And I said to them, they're like, oh, you should just start shooting. I'm like, no, I have this vision. This is the vision, 2 chairs, something like that, where I'm able to talk to somebody. And James, I cannot thank you enough because you made my dream realistically came true. I feel like I've accomplished something incredible by doing this, because this was something I want to do my whole life. But let's sign you all off with some. Give us a tip on something about content What do you recommend, James? Besides telling you to come to the studio, what do you got out? What do you got out there?
I would say like along the lines of what you said before, like everything is content. Everything that you're doing from the day in the life to what you do at your office, what you do at your desk, the interactions with your customers. You know, for a real estate agent, it might just be, hey, I'm doing showings with my buyers that we're going to 5 different properties today. So now you have clips that you're sharing of, oh, my buyers liked this type of property, but they didn't like that type of property. For like a roofing company, showing your guys working and doing. There's so many things that people would be interested in if you just showed it to them. So ultimately, make the content, look dumb for the first 5 minutes, you get over it, you get confident, you figure out what you like, what you don't like. But if you're not getting the reps in, you're not even getting it out. So ultimately, done is better than perfection.
Where are you located? Where are you?
We are in Bohemia on Johnson Avenue, right down the road from Islip Airport. So it's nice and easy to get to between Sunrise and the Expressway.
You can fly in.
You can fly in, quite literally. But we make it nice and easy where you book online right through our website, licreatorstudios.com. You can pick the date and time that works best for you, pick the right package, and we'd be happy to help you once you come in.
James, thanks for coming in for work today. I really needed you. But
Thank you.
Great job, man. Thank you very much.
Cool. I appreciate you having me.